our spotlight for this evening. There are clear uncertainties in the global economy, a debt overhang, widening inequality, sluggish demand growth, and an overall slump in productivity. All these factors are clearly pulling back the world economy. Remember, IMF's projection of the global output rising 3.4% in 2016 is also likely to be quickly revised. Remember Managing Director Christine Lagarde's famous words on how the global economy was gripped by a new mediocre. In such an environment, how are corporations insulating their bottom lines, which are the geographies that they're identifying for growth, and have these uncertainties genuinely created opportunities for a country like India, and are we prepared, more importantly, to grab them? What is the ground reality? For more on that, I'm delighted to be joined now by Shane Tedjarati, who's the President, Global High Growth Regions at the US multinational corporation giant Honeywell. Thank you very much for joining us here on The Big Picture. You know, Honeywell has had a long association with India, and considering the fact that the Prime Minister, he rode to power on the promise of making it easier as far as doing business in India is concerned, because he knew that that was perhaps the only way to create more jobs. You are well placed. You've been in India for a long time. Tell us how the regulatory environment has changed in India in the last 22 months or so.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And first of all, let me thank you for inviting me to your program and for hosting us tonight. I'm very excited to be back in India. I'm a regular visitor to here. And you're absolutely right that in the past 22 months, there has been a much renewed spirit and vigor in India among both the Indian business community as well as the global multinationals who have always had a good perspective on India, but are now much more positive and much more excited. I think in the 10 years or so that I've been personally involved with India, I have not seen the mood both by the Indian community as well as by the multinational companies being as positive. So I think the reforms are really beginning to work and get traction. And for a company like us, who 1 out of every one of our 10 employees is living here in India, 10% of our workforce, and we do everything from engineering to design to manufacturing and service and etc. across many parts of India. This is ground zero for our globalization. So it's very important to see the reforms really beginning to take shape and to drive real growth in India. The GDP growth on one side, we're really growing 2 or 3x GDP in India. Just first quarter here, our growth rates have been terrific. Last year we grew double digits in India. So India is increasingly becoming a very important part of our global growth story.
And Shane, in terms of revenues, can you just break that up for us a little bit in terms of revenues? How much does India contribute for Honeywell?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, India, to me, together with China, are the two main engines of growth. If you like, in aerospace terms, they're the rocket boosters to the shuttle. India is more than just a market for us. It's a very dynamic market. In terms of the actual market itself, is just neck and neck next to China as a major contributor to growth. Together with China and India, they contribute more than 30% of the growth of the company. So being one of the best performing multi-industry stocks, more than 30% of it comes from China and India. And more than 50% of it comes from high growth regions. I would say that there is more to it than that, because India is also the place where we have a full formula. We don't just have sales offices with people that sell products that we make around the world. We have a full-fledged office with engineering, with designers, with sales, marketing. We have 15,000 people. We have 7 manufacturing plants in India and growing. We have 5 major engineering centers, all connected. And we're making things in India that is not just in India for India, but India has an emerging middle class, which is very different than the middle class in the Western countries, the middle class which is above 50K GDP per capita. India has this emerging less than 10K GDP per capita middle class, and their needs in terms of products and services that we need to satisfy can only be made in India. But once you satisfy those, they can become solutions in places like you mentioned, like in Africa or Central Asia or Latin America, or increasingly around the world. So India is the world center of the emerging new middle class in the whole world for me.
Thanks, Shane. And I really like the metaphors you're using, ground zero, to describe India and how India and China are the rocket boosters for a company like yours. Tell us also a little bit about, how are multinational corporations dealing with the fact that, global growth is stagnating, world is getting used to lower growth. And clearly there are challenges, for multinational corporations like you. So how are you sort of keeping your revenue, your bottom lines intact in an environment of low growth?
Absolutely, and that's why high growth regions is so important to us. It's no longer just we don't call it emerging markets because they're not emerging, they're real here and now. Together, high growth regions, if you look at the United States, the developed Europe and say Australia and all that, and then you look at the rest of the world, high growth regions are north of 60% of the global GDP growth today. And over the next 10 years, they're going to continue to be, in fact, over the next 20 years, as urbanization happens, as standards of living rise. So we have aligned our industries, our technologies, our portfolios to that global trend. That's why we can confidently say that over the next 5 to 10 years, we will grow and we will contribute more than 50% of the growth of the company from high growth regions. And we will grow in markets like India and China, Africa, Middle East, the emerging parts of Latin America. Now, from place to place, of course, you will have places which are shining and growing fast, like today's India. And you will have places that are probably having some difficulties and challenges, like Brazil. But it's all about portfolio management. We are not a reactive company that just seeing at the first sight of a little slowdown, pull out of a country and pour back into others. We have a long-term strategy. When India was struggling a little bit with some of the growth, we continue to invest here because the long-term mega trend is right. The long-term direction is correct. People want to emerge from poverty, want to live better lives. They want to have more safety, more security. They want to live in greener cities, greener buildings. They want to have better communication, better transportation, and they want to be more comfortable. This is not something that is a trendy thing for this year and next year, and it's going to finish in 2020. So we've bet on that. We've built our company on that. And that's why I'm very excited about it. And that's why you'd see, for example, the government push on these 100 smart cities. We are right at the heart of it. We recently launched our Smart Buildings Index, and we've recently done a smart city program in one of the cities in India, and we're now embarking on 11 cities in MP. All of this stuff is in terms of city surveillance, in terms of smart and green buildings that are green, they're efficient, and they're safe. This all, I think, is opportunity for us for the next decade. So I am betting on India, I'm betting on China, I'm betting on emerging markets to drive most of our growth.
Very nicely put there, Shane. But before we let you go, a word on your aerospace business, considering that that is a key growth pillar for you. And now, especially with the aviation policy that the government should be announcing soon, how much more opportunities do you see opening up there in the coming few years?
We're very excited about the aerospace vertical in India. In fact, some of our most sophisticated and advanced customers in India are in the aerospace industry, and they are actually some of our most sophisticated customers anywhere in the world, because they have to operate in one of the most dynamic, most competitive environments in the world and have to succeed here. Yesterday I met with the CEO of Indigo, whose work here is just marvelous. We're big partners with them, and they're just flying the new Airbus Neo, and we were discussing on ways in which we can even take it to a higher level of helping them with better cost, better efficiency. And increasingly what I see is actually a lot of airlines in the world looking at how Indian airlines are innovating low-cost, high-quality service. So aerospace business is big for us, both on airlines, on business jets, as well as defense and space, because India is a big ally of the US. And we also have 3,000 aerospace engineers here in India that develop together with our global engineers a lot of our fantastic products here.
We will leave it at that, Shane. Thank you so very much for joining us here on The Big Picture and taking us through your views on a whole host of things.